That's no good. Turn it off. Stop it. Turn it off. That won't work. It's no good. What do you make a trailer for? To give the public an idea of what kind of a picture to expect.
But, boss, we...
Hilarious, romantic, tender, exciting. Make up your minds. It can't be all of those things.
From one-reelers to 3-hour marathons. From serials to sequels. From talkies to Technicolor. From silence to Silence of the Lambs. Something scary to something about Mary. Hitch to Hitch. Whether the comedy is antic or romantic, the creatures soaring or alluring, the heroes singing or swinging, every movie from indie to epic needs a trailer. So grab your popcorn as we follow the trail of trailers. This is the story of the first 100 years of coming attractions.
For almost a century, film audiences have enjoyed the world's best loved advertising, the movie trailer. Hi, I'm Robert Osborne. Ever since I was a kid, I've been captivated by going to the movies. And the excitement always began when the lights went down and the trailers came on. We're going to meet the talented people who create trailers, the filmmakers and studio executives who rely on them, and the scholars who study them. We'll examine how trailers are made, how they evolved, and what the future holds for a creative industry like no other. One of the questions everybody asks is, why are they called trailers? Well, in the early days of movies, they trailed the feature, telling audiences what was coming next week. And that term trailer has stuck ever since.
You know, most people think that a trailer is just the best scenes in a movie strung together, but that isn't true at all. A trailer is a marketing tool that positions a motion picture within the marketplace.
You don't really understand what they are. You think they're little mini synopses of the movie, and of course they're not.
A good trailer today does what it was always intended to do in the old days as well, get you interested in the movie, whet your appetite.
Advertising for motion pictures began in 1894 when Thomas Edison first presented his wondrous new invention to the public. Initially, motion pictures relied on print to attract audiences. Sidewalk signs, posters, handbills, and newspaper ads alerted the public to the short, simple films that they could see between acts at vaudeville theaters, beneath the tents of traveling exhibitors, and through the viewfinder at kinetoscope parlors. The leap to on-screen promotion occurred later in the decade, when exhibitors began using age-old magic lantern projection to tell captive audiences about exceptional newsreel footage.
Well, magic lanterns, of course, existed for a couple of centuries prior to the invention of the motion picture. And of course, they were used by exhibitors in various ways, whether it was the itinerant showman who wandered from town to town, showing pictures of scenes of other lands, or there were documents of expeditions and travels and trips. It was always a showmanship sort of thing from the beginning.
On-screen promotion for movies emerged in 1904, when the Lubin Company of Philadelphia provided exhibitors with a slide using the title art from its coming attraction, Mephisto in His Laboratory. Now, curiously, the slide did not include any information about where, when you could see this movie, or why you might want to. Despite these early experiments, on-screen advertising wasn't yet practical. Films were typically 10 minutes in length, too short to merit individual publicity, and delivery to theaters was too uncertain to permit advance notice to audiences. In 1909, all this was about to change.
The Motion Pictures Patents Company was a trust. The major producers of equipment and film, such as Edison, Biograph, and Pathé, had been at odds with each other and been fighting legal fights for several years. when finally in 1909 they decided that they got more money if they pooled their patents and worked together and sort of formed this trust that would allow them to exploit their patents and distribute and market their films together.
Audiences, having indiscriminately devoured films for the past 15 years, became selective. Movies of longer length with higher production values and recognizable actors were what they wanted to see.
My personal belief is that it was coincidence with the start of the feature film where the glass slides became used much more regularly. Up until that time, the short subject was king, and the short subject didn't need advertising.
Moving beyond title art, richly illustrated slides displayed story elements and stars and engaged audiences through powerful design and compelling copy, similar to the movie posters we see today. And for convenience sake, each of these slides provided a blank space for exhibitors to write in dates and showtimes. Despite their sophisticated design, however, glass slides didn't have film's unique advantage, movement. Curiously, it wasn't the movie business that pioneered the use of film to advertise its products. In 1897, the Admiral cigarette brand hired Edison's company to produce a commercial to play in movie theaters. 18 years after the invention of motion pictures, movies and movie distribution reached the point where filmed on-screen advertising made economic sense.
Well, the first trailer, term trailer, of course, means something that trails the film, and it was initially used as a technical term for a black strip of film containing no information, which was attached to the end of the film in order to protect the print. The first trailer that I know of is the trailer that was used, or were the trailers that were used in the Edison series, What Happened to Mary. At the end of each episode of the series, you will get a short strip of film with title cards reading "See next week's episode" or "Continued next week." And those were basically the first trailers.
Following the 8th episode, audiences read the flickering text printed on the trailing portion of the leader. The next incident in the series of What Happened to Mary will be shown a week from now.
So trailers really began very modestly. From the very beginning, they were just still images on these glass slides. And then when they started to move, they were just sort of static scenes from the movies. This entire very dynamic, montage-based industry of movie trailers began with such a sort of static text.
Merely white text on a black screen, the first trailers were known in trade journals as heralds. Wobbly projection aside, they were much less dynamic than a well-designed slide. The next step in the development of coming attractions was decisive. Incorporating footage from the movie itself, scene trailers, now called animated heralds, represent the first coming attractions as we know them today.
The early scene trailers, in a way, were modeled on print advertisements and posters. And in fact, if you look at the early examples of scene trailers, you see that they contain the same elements. You know, you have a title, you have an image taken from the film, you get the stars' names, and perhaps a slogan, just in sequence.
With popular stars to promote and larger budgets to recoup, producers and distributors use scene trailers to sell action, spectacle, and stars in thrilling close-ups and romantic clinches.
Trailers were originally, back in the teens and early 20s, made by the either the film's director or the film's editor themselves. They made their own little trailer. But as the volume of movies increased, a small trailer department was developed in which montage editors and short film editors were converted and used to cut trailers. A trailer editor didn't have access to the entire movie. All he had were outtakes and alternate takes or scenes the director had shot but he knew he wasn't going to use. And those were all sent over to the trailer department. There was only one print struck of the movie, and that was for the feature editor. And the trailer people didn't have access to the negative. It was just too precious a thing to touch, the negative of the movie. So they were left with scraps and bits, and that's why you saw so many intertitles in the early trailers. because there was no continuity of scenes in the picture for a trailer maker to actually put together a coherent trailer. So those intertitles were necessary to get you from one shot to another, whatever scraps and bits that he had.
These silent era trailers packed an emotional punch, and audiences were captivated. Trailers proved so effective that at a publicity convention in the summer of 1916, Hiram Abrams, president of Paramount Studios, announced his company's intention to cooperate with exhibitors in every way possible to sell tickets.
The first company to produce trailers, according to my research, for its films was Paramount. Paramount was, of course, also the first company to organize an advertising, publicity, and exploitation department. That was in 1915, 1916. And soon thereafter, the first Paramount trailers started to appear. The whole point of the scene trailer was that it was a tool to use the film to advertise the film. Pretty soon, everyone understood that trailers were a very useful tool and that they should be used.
Beginning around the late teens and early 20s, previews of coming attractions were distributed on a separate reel, allowing exhibitors to move them to the front of the program instead of wasting them on crowds filing out of the theater. 1919 was a banner year for coming attractions. Paramount decided to offer trailers for all of its features. Also that year, National Screen Service opened for business. Recognizing that studios were busy with movie making, National Screen Service offered a reliable one-stop source for trailers, from production to nationwide distribution.
The idea, the business model behind National Screen was to simplify the process for exhibitors.
National Screen Service, from its inception, was more a distributor of trailers than a producer of trailers. The point about the system that they established and about the service they offered was that they provided exhibitors with trailers on each and every film they showed, regardless of the studio of origin.
The idea was almost unanimously embraced by motion picture studios, and National Screen grew quickly into a virtual monopoly. The man responsible for National Screen's strategy and success was former Fox National sales manager Herman Robbins, who joined the company in 1922. By 1928, he had bought out his partners and regional competitors and become president of National Screen.
He was hell on earth, Herman Robbins. Every story I ever heard about him was. He essentially modeled himself after the tyrants, who were the great tyrants of the movie business, and I think that was probably how he saw himself, as the Napoleon of the trailer business.
I recall my grandfather's reputation was tough as nails, a very hardcore business person, and very deliberate, a dominant type of figure.
It was through the clout of Herman Robbins that National Screen was actually able to secure exclusive access to the actual footage from all of the major studios. As soon as trailer production was relocated to the West Coast, the unit man system emerges.
These National Screen unit men established a new category of work in Hollywood, the dedicated professional trailer producer. From What Happened to Mary to the mid-1920s, the popularity of trailers grew with both audiences and movie producers. What had begun as a promotional experiment became an essential industry tool.
If you look at the history of the classical scene trailer, you could say that there are three major innovations. The first innovation, of course, is the emergence of the scene trailer in about 1915, 1916, when they start using excerpts from the film to advertise the film. The second innovation would be the introduction of what I like to call the classical structure of the film. The basic four-part structure consisting of introduction, title, an elaboration section where the trailer elaborates on the theme of the introduction and the final title. And the third major innovation comes with the introduction of the optical printer.
It wasn't just the formula that improved. Creative attention was now being given to trailer production like never before. Editorial advances in pace, rhythm, and the use of special effects are visible in this 1926 trailer. Like print advertising for motion pictures, trailers used hyperbole, bombast, and the banner headlines common to circus promotion.
Silent trailers caught on to the whole idea of hyperbole very quickly. There's a really great silent trailer for Ben-Hur that uses more outlandish, outrageous words than P.T. Barnum ever would have dared in one single pitch.
While the appearance and style of coming attractions evolved through the teens and 20s, the appeal of star power never wavered. Makers of motion pictures understood from 1910 onward that stars were the most important attraction of all. The history of coming attractions closely parallels the history of the movie industry itself. Nowhere is that more visible than in the realm of technology. In 1927, movies learned to talk.
Ladies and gentlemen,
so did trailers.
I am privileged to say a few words to you in this most modern and novel manner. Privileged because it's the first living Vitaphone announcement ever made announcing the coming of one of the year's outstanding pictures. What is the picture? Oh, well, of course. You've guessed that I'm referring to Warner Brothers' supreme triumph, Al Jolson in The Jazz Singer.
The advent of sound changed the look of trailers quite significantly, of course, because you suddenly had people talking to you. You had people appearing on stage and addressing the audience and talking about the film.
Already in the early sound era, you're seeing a real sense of trailer rhetoric where the narrator of the trailer works in tandem with the titles of the trailer and the visuals in such a way that each has their job and they're sophisticatedly interacting.
Wild, weird, wonderful, the stuff for which movies were made. Adventure, to make you wonder if it's true, while your eyes convince you that it is. Truly, the thrill of thrills. Don't miss it this time.
Enhanced visual capabilities came to trailers in the early 1930s. The advent of the Bell & Howell optical printer in 1933 made it much easier to create visual effects like wipes, title treatments, and image superimpositions. In addition to special effects, and in order to compete for audiences, trailers began featuring specially written, scored, and photographed material. Called special shoot trailers, such previews of coming attractions became short films in their own right. This 1933 preview has a specially written song not used in the movie instead of the usual trailer narration.
Did you ever see an oyster walk? Did you ever hear a turtle talk? Did you ever see a caterpillar puffing on a pipe? Or a mouth with a sail on the tip of its tail? Certain little girl once did, and she got into a hole, poor kid. Yeah, she got into a hole of a funny old bunny, and down, down, down she slid. Of course you understand, the girl was Alice, and little Alice was thrilled she could be. The place was Wonderland, where even rabbits have human habits, the land of Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
First seen in the 1920s, hosted previews featuring a specially filmed host became the most popular form of special shoot trailers and would remain so for the next 3 decades.
Stories on Africa have always interested me. One particularly, The Woman Who Needed Killing, describes the effect of the heat and monotony of the jungle on the lives of 2 men and 1 beautiful woman.
Sometimes the host would be an actor from the film appearing in character.
I'm Barry Kane, American. Right now I'm a fugitive. A couple of days ago I was an aircraft worker. Then something happened. My best friend died in that fire. The authorities questioned everybody. I told them what I knew.
There were 2 detectives here a moment ago. They wanted to arrest you. They said that you killed him.
You don't know what it is to be hunted like an animal. To dread every door you open. To fear everybody.
Frequently, a film's director would host the trailer.
Sorry we haven't time to show you more of the detail of the making of a picture such as Cleopatra. It's an endless task. We work perhaps 18 hours a day. The making of a picture of such large dimensions as Cleopatra is not the work of any one man. The director only guides the many geniuses that are under him.
Staged interviews with movie actors capitalized on audiences' abiding interest in stars.
Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank you for all the lovely letters you have sent me. It's been a great pleasure and honor to work with Miss Garbo and Mr. March in our new picture, Anna Karenina.
Indeed, the hosted trailer is still being used today.
I'm Robin Williams, here on the world's largest soundstage at 20th Century Fox. That's right. This entire wheat field is in one building. I'm here tonight to talk to you about an incredible movie, Toys.
Toys trailer. Toys! There'll be a big lettered thing up here above me, glowing. Obviously some incredible special effect that'll go dun 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 dun. Toys!
In addition to the obvious appeal of stars, trailers consistently promoted spectacle, story elements, and genre to attract audiences. Spectacle is what the earliest films had to offer, something to see that you'd never seen before. To this day, the drawing power of spectacle remains undiminished.
This fall, TriStar Pictures takes you to the front lines of the next frontier.
Kill them all!
Starship Troopers.
Come closer. I want to talk to you. I'm going to tell you an astounding story. The story of the Maltese falcon. 600 years, the falcon has carried the mystery of a fabulous wealth under its grotesque wings. I could tell you 1,000 tales of the men and women who have hunted this evil bird. But every story has the same ending: murder.
Trailers for genre films promised audiences a chance to relive an experience they'd previously enjoyed. Favorite genres include romantic comedies, horror, westerns,
Out of the flame and fury of the frontier, the Old West lives again as only John Ford can recreate it. People with wonderful characters who have become legend in their own time.
and musicals. Beyond the efforts of National Screen Service and Hollywood studio marketing departments, some of the most interesting and innovative trailers of the 30s and 40s were made by directors and producers with the clout to create their own.
Cecil B. DeMille was a big believer in special trailers. He appeared in most of his trailers, and remember that he was a personality to people, not just a filmmaker.
I think DeMille is quite a ham, and he loved seeing himself on screen, so you get these 10-minute long trailers of DeMille basically talking about the Ten Commandments, or how basically God wants you to see the Ten Commandments.
If you will be patient with me, I'd like to talk to you about this wonderful soul that Michelangelo caught so magnificently in marble. For centuries, people have been puzzled by these horns. Well, in the original book of Exodus, the Hebrew text tells us that when Moses came down from the mount, Keren came from his head. Well, Keren is the Hebrew word for horn, but it also is the Hebrew word for rays of light. Later artists, like Doré, show Moses with rays of light coming from his head. Here is a photograph of the original statue in Rome. Now notice the likeness to Charlton Heston, who plays Moses in the Ten Commandments.
In a trailer, you have precious little time, and you have to use strong arguments. You have to use strong selling points. So if you see someone like Cecil B. DeMille appear in a trailer, it's not just megalomania. These are calculated efforts. The advertising people knew that he had drawing power, so he could afford to be in his trailers.
Arguably, the most famous trailer of all time is Orson Welles' trailer for Citizen Kane. He used his radio persona, if you will, to introduce his debut movie, Citizen Kane. It opens with a microphone, a boom microphone off in the distance, comes closer, turns toward him, and he begins to tell you about his film. It's fantastic.
Thank you. How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? This is Orson Welles. I'm speaking for the Mercury Theater, and what follows is supposed to advertise our first motion picture. Citizen Kane is the title, and we hope it can correctly be called a coming attraction. It's certainly coming to this theater, and I think our Mercury actors make it an attraction. I'd like you to meet them. Speaking of attractions, well, the chorus girls are certainly an attraction, but frankly, ladies and gentlemen, we're just showing you the chorus girls for purposes of ballyhoo. It's pretty nice ballyhoo. But here's some of our real Mercury people. This is the first time you've seen most of them on the screen. Hey, give Joe a little light. Thanks. Now smile for the folks, Joe. Smile. Joseph Cotton, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. Joseph Cotton. I think you're going to see a lot of him. Here's Ruth Warwick, whom I know you love. Ruth. Look at the camera, Ruth. We caught Ruth with her hair up. And here's somebody you've all heard on the radio, so I don't have to tell you he's wonderful, Ray Collins. Dorothy Commengore is a name I'm going to repeat. Dorothy Commengore. I won't have to repeat it much longer. You'll be repeating it. And here's George Coulouris, who's a grand actor. I'll say that name again. George Coulouris. Watch it. Here comes Everett Sloane. Look out, Everett. Oops. Everett Sloane, ladies and gentlemen, he isn't necessarily a comedian. And here's one of the best actors in the world, Agnes Moorehead. I've said a lot of nice things, but Erskine Sanford deserves some more. Erskine Sanford. So does Paul. Paul Stewart, everybody. Citizen Kane is a modern American story about a man called Kane, Charles Foster Kane. I don't know how to tell you about him. There's so many things to say. I'll turn you over instead to the characters in the picture. As you'll see, they feel very strongly on the subject.
Charles Foster Kane is...
Sure, he started the war. But do you think if it hadn't been for Mr. Kane, the United States would have the Panama Canal?
Charles Foster Kane is nothing more or less than a communist. Kane, governor. Listen, when the voters of this state and Mrs. Kane learn what I found out about Mr. Kane and a certain little blondie named Susan Alexander, he couldn't be elected dog catcher. I'm going to skin Mr. Charles Foster Kane alive.
I'm going to marry him next week at the White House.
Emily, I hear you've been stepping out with Charlie Kane.
Of course I love him. I gave him $60 million.
Well, of course I love him. He's the richest man in America.
But all the girls say about him at first.
But you know, I can't help but admire him. He's crazy.
He's wonderful.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you'll think about Mr. Kane. I can't imagine. You see, I play the part myself. Well, Kane is a hero and a scoundrel, a no-account and a swell guy, a great lover, a great American citizen, and a dirty dog. It depends on who's talking about him. What's the real truth about Charles Foster Kane? I wish you'd come to this theater when Citizen Kane plays here and decide for yourself.
In the 50s and 60s, one of the most popular and recognizable movie personas was Alfred Hitchcock, who made a point of appearing not only in his films, but also in many of his trailers.
Hitchcock did for The Birds, for Psycho. I mean, Psycho is a very famous trailer. I'm sure you've seen it. It's like a 7 or 8 minute tour of the Bates Hotel, basically.
Good afternoon. Here we have a quiet little motel, tucked away off the main highway, and as you see, perfectly harmless looking, when in fact, it has now become known as the scene of the crime. This motel also has, as an adjunct, an old house, which is, if I may say so, a little more sinister looking, less innocent than the motel itself. And in this house, the most dire, horrible events took place.
What a way to get you involved. And he kept doing this right to the end. I love his trailer for Frenzy, where he's floating on the Thames River. The famous portly Hitchcock profile upended, you know, in his black suit.
On the horizon, social and economic factors were about to revolutionize the way movies were made and promoted.
The end of World War II basically coincided with the breakdown of the Hollywood studio system. It was the beginning of the baby boom. It was the move to the suburbs and the end of the kind of city center as a place where people would go to see film. It was the burgeoning of television. So people were staying home for that reason as well, to watch TV instead of go to the movies. Another factor that happened to the industry at that time was the blacklist. So the film industry was kind of feeling on the defensive in a way that it hadn't since the early days of cinema.
The movie industry was running scared. 1950s movies tried desperately to attract audiences. New screen technologies like CinemaScope, VistaVision, Cinerama, and 3D helped filmmakers compete against small screen, black and white television.
Yes, it came from outer space to fill the world with terror, to bring you unforgettable suspense. What was it? Where did it come from? Who were the all-powerful creatures it brought from outer space? And what did they want on Earth? You can learn the amazing answer only when you see the most thrilling picture in years. It came from outer space.
According to my reading, the introduction of technological innovations such as CinemaScope, the advent of color in all film production, did not significantly change either the structure or the look of trailers. You would still get excerpts, wipes, roll-on titles, and narration. So in that sense, the model or the style and look of the trailer that was established in the early 30s and in around 1933, 1934, continued on well into the mid-60s.
Many trailers made during this time of declining audiences are enthusiastically remembered, collected, and appreciated today.
All the people I know who like trailers, or who love trailers, as I do, love the old trailers. When there seemed to be more, I don't know, more gusto, more zip and vigor and enthusiasm and hyperbole.
They was just selling gut instinct. They were selling Gable and Garbo and stars and excitement and thrills. And as a result of that, all those old trailers are much more fun to watch.
The best trailers, bar none, were made by Warner Brothers in the 30s and especially the 40s into the 50s. They had a pizzazz and an energy that was unmatched by anybody else's. They had almost a house style.
You remember this one? Boy, they really made that torrid zone sizzle. And this one? Big. Boy, it was colossal. Wait till you see this one. Take it from a guy who sees them all. It's the best yet.
You won't tell me because you think I'll come there. You think I'd follow you.
You'd be insane to follow me.
Was I insane to pick you up on the road? Was I crazy to let you stay here?
Despite such nostalgic appreciation, the trailers of the late National Screen era had begun to appear stale and outdated.
We're going on the loose. We're going all out.
And as our three happy gobs and three happy girls walk merrily toward the setting sun, we reluctantly say farewell to them and hello to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's On the Town.
Three slick fellas. We're gonna paint it red. Fill them up and then drink them down. Let's have a ball tonight. We're going on the town.
They're corny and they're kitschy and funny. And, you know, I actually I'm not sure because I haven't been able to do this kind of research, but I wouldn't be surprised if these trailers were just as corny and kitschy and funny to the audiences at the time as they are to audiences now.
I started to feel that way when I was at National Screen. I mean, I thought, you know, the trailers were ridiculous. They were clunky beyond belief. You know, just scenes that were just strung together with narration and these huge titles. I kind of liked the titles, actually, but you know, those huge copy titles.
In hindsight, National Screen Service and Hollywood Studios' marketing departments were slow to respond to the profound economic, demographic, and cultural shifts of the 1950s. It was more than just the demise of the contract player system or the forced sale by studios of their theater chains. Television, prosperity, and peace had transformed the movie-going public. With older audiences increasingly staying home, younger audiences were becoming the primary consumer of movie tickets, and they wanted something new. Although it had shaped an industry and dominated as no other company would again, National Screen Service, with its cliche-ridden and circus-inspired coming attractions, no longer connected to audiences. Today, National Screen Service's creative legacy goes largely undocumented. Its archives lost, destroyed, or dispersed. Its name unfamiliar to many who work in the industry. What remains incontestable, however, is its staggering output of entertaining and memorable trailers. Looking back on the first 50 years, we see a rapid development and a long plateau during which the trailer industry grew perhaps too comfortable. Still, what seems corny, crude, or laughable in trailers from the 1950s must be understood against how far technologically and editorially the industry had come from the days of glass slides and the text-only trailers. In the 1960s, the art and business of trailers would be reinvented all over again.
The DeMille approach of, just massive hyperbole was wearing down. If you look at trailers, even from pictures as good as The Grapes of Wrath and Stagecoach and stuff like that, you find that the trailers are very unsophisticated.
Tom Joad is played by Henry Fonda. Maud Joad is played by Jane Darwell. Casey is played by John Carradine.
As the movies became more sophisticated, and the audiences did, I think the advertising had to.
In the 1950s, studios revamped feature production to appeal to younger, more frequent moviegoers. Adopting the innovations of European New Wave directors, the realism of television's Playhouse 90s programming, and the rebellious energy of rock and roll, Hollywood sought to recapture the audience with a new style of filmmaking. What studios failed to do, however, was to revamp their marketing. Trailers continued to be created and produced as they had been for decades. For a movie like The Wild One, an example of this new youth-oriented production philosophy, the mismatch between film and trailer can readily be seen.
We got this town on a rope.
Get to work on these boys. Anybody bring a gun for me?
Yeah, here's one. Phone's dead. You better send somebody for the militia.
As Hollywood underwent major upheavals and old-fashioned ways of telling stories changed in the films, then perhaps the trailers changed with them and had to become a little more low-key. They had to get rid of the old announcers. They had to get rid of the old sales techniques.
The modernization of trailers occurred primarily through the efforts of three creative pioneers and the influence of one city, New York. Beginning in the mid-1950s, Madison Avenue-trained commercial designer Saul Bass brought a new look to feature film main titles and advertising with his bold graphic artistry. He inspired a generation of commercial and graphic designers to seek an emblematic image, immediately identifiable with the film, as the key element of the film's advertising.
The thing that was singular about what happened with Man with the Golden Arm and a number of other things we did was the notion of making a commitment to one central idea, the notion that it was possible in a totally reductive way to say, this is what the film is about, and develop an evocative visual configuration and image that would express that notion and express it in a sufficiently seductive and perhaps metaphorical or a provocative way that would cause a large enough number of people to say, hey, I'm interested in this film and I want to see it.
You create something like a brand identity for the film. In every message that you get, be it the poster, the book cover, the title sequence, the trailer, the TV spot, you use the same image. You make the film immediately identifiable.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know where.
In 1963, Stanley Kubrick sought a different kind of trailer than he felt he would receive from a Hollywood trailer department. he hired Madison Avenue designer and ad guru Pablo Ferro after seeing Ferro's trademark quick cut technique in a number of celebrated commercials. For Kubrick's film, Ferro created what is widely considered the first trailer of the modern era.
Stanley Kubrick saw a commercial that I did, and he liked it, and he wanted to meet me because he wanted me to do a commercial for his movie, Dr. Strangelove. And the trailer was so outrageous at that time that a movie theater in Texas advertised to come and see the wildest trailers you've ever seen.
Attack!
Russia.
Oh. Base.
10 females to each male.
Coca-Cola machine.
Fluids.
The Doomsday Machine.
Blast off!
That same year, the third and most influential of these movie marketing pioneers began a systematic reinvention of coming attractions, but from a position inside the industry. In 1963, Andrew J. Keene was hired by MGM to head up its newly formed promotional film department in New York City, responsible for developing trailers and TV spots. Keene had previously made a name for himself at National Screen Service, producing trailers for important European films like Rocco and His Brothers, Last Year at Marienbad, and Shoot the Piano Player.
Elle s'appelait Françoise, et on l'appelait Françoise. Une idée de l'adjudant qu'elle avait très peu de temps.
MGM was a company that was sinking badly, and they needed a hit movie really, really badly. Andy kept pestering the marketing department, let me do some trailers in New York, let me do some trailers in New York. And wasn't very successful initially, but finally Andy spied a movie that he thought was just the right movie for him to launch a full-scale trailer operation in New York City. Andy knew that picture had extraordinary qualities that would escape the studio trailer departments or in a typical national screen trailer. And I think he knew exactly what to do with it.
One man. 3 women. 1 night. The night of the iguana. Since man has known woman, there has never been such a night.
Shannon, open the door. You hear me, Shannon. You've got that child in there. You're through, Shannon. I'll see to that. When I finish with you, there won't be any place left to hide.
For this trailer, Andy Keene put aside the old formulas he'd learned at National Screen Service. The brief, provocative copy, the voice-over narration performed by an actor instead of read by an announcer, the use of film dialogue to tell the story, fast-paced editing, and arresting music would become industry standards for trailers for decades to come.
One of the contributions of Andrew Keene to the trailer-making craft, according to my reading, is that he was one of the first to devise this new style of editing. You can see the emergence of what in trailer-making language is generally called the grid. You take one scene and you intersect it with excerpts from several other scenes.
Will Mr. Shannon be all right, do you think?
All right? Honey, I don't know.
That's a way of really speeding up the delivery of narrative information.
All women, whether they want to face it or not, want to see a man in a tied-up situation.
And where you get a story delivery that's really fast.
Let me out of here! Let me loose! Shannon will emerge triumphant.
Trailers changed drastically and dramatically in the 1960s. And what changed them is advertising. Television began to show that it could sell a product, and more sophisticated advertising techniques were applied to trailers. The minute that happened, the trailers changed their form. Remember the old days, you say, extraordinary, terrifying, gigantic. Today we don't use titles like that. We use narrative.
Director John Frankenheimer and Cinerama take you out of the grandstand and hurl you into the most exciting experience of your life.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
For the next 40 years, Andy Keene would be the dominant figure in the world of coming attractions. First at MGM, then from 1967 onward, as the head of Kaleidoscope Films, the New York editing service that he and his partner Dan Davis built into an industry leader. Other studios followed Keene's lead at MGM, hiring New York editing houses to produce previews of coming attractions, thereby breaking the stranglehold of the studio trailer departments and National Screen Service. These boutique editing houses remain the creative force in trailer making to this day. In modern trailers, the emphasis shifted to using narration in a more concise and imaginative way.
It's easy to talk about Warner Brothers' new motion picture, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? It's hard to tell about it. Easy to talk about. All you have to say is Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton.
Who's afraid of Virginia?
We decided to write stuff that had some dramatic import, that had some heart to it, that that you could do things with, and you could put some music behind it. And once you start doing that, once you start hiring actors to do the narration as opposed to announcers doing the narration, it changes the whole complexion of what you're doing.
Hold it! May we call your attention to Mr. Bond's impeccable tailoring from London's Savile Row? The shirt is of hand-tailored Indian madras. Also the cravat, hand-woven of Javanese batik. An essential feature of Mr. Bond's wardrobe is the pistol in his right hand. It is a Walther PPK, 7.65 mil. It takes a Brausch silencer with very little reduction in muzzle velocity. It has a delivery like a brick through a plate glass window. His secret agent code number is 007.
By the mid-1960s, trailers were not only keeping up creatively, they were occasionally getting ahead of the films they promoted. Editing pace and sophistication increased. So did attention to copy, sound elements, and music. Dialogue and subject matter grew more provocative.
We're in this together. You want it in. You're going to get 10%. So you earn your keep.
$2,600,000 in cash.
Whose head are you after?
Yours.
Mine.
Yours.
New young editors who weren't bound by the old traditions of trailer making were putting scenes together that no one would have thought to put together. And they may have looked discontinuous at the time, but they were actually building an Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 trailer just the way you would do a play or a movie. But they were doing it in 1.5 to 2.5 minutes. Therefore, narration wasn't as necessary because the story was being told in a very sophisticated editorial style. And I think that pleased audiences. I think audiences recognized that as being a very contemporary and a very significant-looking movie.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me. Aren't you?
Have you gotten us a room yet?
I haven't, no.
Do you want to? I'll get undressed now. Is that all right?
Sure. Shall I just stand here? I don't know what you want me to do.
Why don't you watch?
Oh, sure, thank you.
Benjamin, are you having an affair with someone?
Of course, it was the editors who had hands-on responsibility for translating new ideas about movie advertising into compelling movie trailers. In the 1960s, innovative editors like Larry Tettenbaum and Jeff Canoe devised bold new techniques to create visually arresting montages cut to carefully selected music.
The might of war. The majesty of love. The monumental motion picture of our time. Dr. Zhivago.
No rich lady with any class at all buys that cowboy crap anymore. They're laughing at you on the street. Frankly, you're beginning to smell. And for a stud in New York, that's a handicap.
What you got me up here for?
Ready for some hard work, son?
I'm ready for anything.
You're a nice person, Joe. I should never have asked you up here.
Faggot.
It's gonna be a lot easier for you, Joe Buck.
You're a lovely person, really.
Faggot.
I'm gonna use you. I'm gonna run you ragged.
Where you been, 42nd Street?
Trailers for movies continued to be made in Hollywood by National Screen Service in conjunction with studio marketing departments. But prestige projects, big budget pictures, and films of exceptional box office potential received the New York treatment that told an audience, here's something special.
And now, your journey is just beginning.
Why won't anybody here tell me what's happened to him?
Are you sure you're pregnant?
Yes, I am pregnant.
I can pull that fat cat down. I'm afraid you're a little late, Virgil. We already got the guilty man.
May I examine this prisoner?
Yeah, you can look at him. Come on, let him look.
He's left-handed, isn't he?
What's that make him?
Innocent.
I got the motive, which is money, and the body, which is death.
You're holding the wrong man.
But don't you push me, boy!
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
The films of Michelangelo Antonioni speak every language. This is his first in English.
What's your name? What do they call you in bed?
Blow Up.
Although the 1960s were a revolutionary time for filmmaking, audiences, and movie trailers, the 1970s would see changes in the motion picture industry as important as any that had occurred since the introduction of sound. From story development, production, and distribution to advertising, promotion, and publicity, it would be an extraordinary decade of movie art and movie marketing. Citing the burdensome overhead of maintaining offices on both coasts, senior studio management returned to Los Angeles at the beginning of the 1970s. They brought with them their new model for creating trailers by continuing to hire outside boutique editing houses. It was during the early 1970s that studios realized their advertising and promotional expenditures were woefully inadequate, given the short shelf life and enormous cost of feature films.
Life had been good to Chris McNeil.
Movie marketing budgets grew dramatically as aggressive nationwide TV advertising campaigns were implemented. Established trailer houses expanded to handle the work of cutting down their movie trailers into television-length formats.
The one hope. The only hope. The Exorcist. Rated R. The movie you've been waiting for. Without the wait.
In a long overdue acknowledgement of how effective trailers were relative to their cost, in 1974, studios began distributing them for free to exhibitors, thus ending a 50-year monopoly of their rental to theaters by National Screen Service.
The trailer is quite simply the most powerful tool of film advertising. No other means of film advertising reaches a bigger potential audience at less cost than the trailer. Trailers only take up between 1% and 4% of the advertising budget of an average film, but they contribute, according to whatever market research study you quote, between 25 to 40% of the box office revenue. So they're a highly effective tool of advertising.
If you nail the trailer, then the television material will follow along behind and will be shaped. The advertising and the marketing decisions will be shaped by the trailer. So it provides a valuable horse out in front, and it pulls the rest of it.
Because of the runaway success of one film, 1975 was a watershed year for the movie and the trailer business.
I got a call from Universal, and they said, we have a problem here. We have a picture, Jaws, you probably have heard about it, and we've got a lot of guarantees from the theaters, and we have a director who just simply doesn't want to show the shark. And he's made a teaser which the exhibitors don't like, and they're saying, we either want the shark or we want our guarantees back. And I said, well, let me look at the movie. I looked at the movie and I said, I agree with Steven Spielberg. I don't think you need to show the shark at all. To me, what's much more frightening is the point of view of the shark.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws.
Jaws raised the bar of box office expectations, grossing over $100 million in 1975 dollars, thanks in part to a memorably frightening trailer. The blockbuster era had arrived, and trailers, as their lead marketing tool, had never been more important.
John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, Grease.
His name is Kal-El. He will call himself Clark Kent. But the world will know him as Superman. This year, Superman brings you the gift of flight.
Here's where the fun begins.
No legendary adventure of the past could be as exciting as this romance of the future.
Here they come.
May the Force be with you in Star Wars.
In time, the money generated by blockbusters attracted the attention of outside investors. In the 1980s, many of the major studios were acquired by multinational media corporations, whose quarterly profit requirements further increased the pressure on movie marketing departments to open a movie successfully. A share of that pressure fell squarely on those hired guns in the battle for the box office, the trailer makers. At the beginning of the decade, only a handful of trailer companies supplied the industry. But as the need for visual materials ballooned, new trailer companies formed to satisfy the growing demand. Ironically, despite radical changes in the style of trailers, physically they were produced in much the same way in the mid-1980s as they had been in the 1930s.
The way that we made trailers back in the day, which was like the late 70s, early 80s, was completely different than the way we do it today, specifically in terms of technology. We actually cut on film.
We worked on film, on 35 millimeter film, and you'd break it down to two or three 1,000-foot select reels, and you worked from that. And then went to the lab, and you made 2 copies of it, and you coded it, and you started cutting. And we cut on upright moviolas, very noisy, bulky machines, and looked for the shots on flatbeds. And it was a very different time because we edited as a team. An editor didn't work alone in his room; he worked with an assistant.
In 1988, the era of digital, nonlinear editing arrived, transforming how movies and their trailers were assembled.
I think that you learn to work a different way, and I think it's like a sculptor who might work in marble and one that might work in clay. that if you're working in marble and you're chipping at marble, you can't make any mistakes. Or you can make a mistake, but it's going to be very costly and take a lot of time to fix it. If you're working in clay, you can fool around a lot until you're kind of happy. That's basically the thing between film and nonlinear editing, is that in film you have to make the decisions, and it's a real pain to open them up again.
Expensive to buy or lease, digital editing systems paid for themselves by eliminating the need for assistant editors and dramatically increasing productivity, speed, and flexibility. Special effects software developed for the new editing systems was eagerly embraced by trailer makers. The result, especially in the genre of action-adventure movies, has been the generation of trailers designed as jaw-dropping, heart-thumping, ear-aching thrill rides. The visual excess of contemporary trailers is just the latest manifestation of how carnival bombast and circus hyperbole continue to inspire movie marketing. Whereas early trailers used outrageous rhetoric and banner headlines to excite audiences, today's trailers use special effects and editing artistry towards that same end.
Simple game. Is he serious?
Always.
It's much worse than you think.
We're being ambushed. Abort, that's an order. They knew we were coming. Do you read me?
I don't care how he did it. I want to know why he did it. You're worried about me. Why you survived.
There are editors now at trailer companies who basically hold their seats at their editing machines because they happen to be guys who are good picture sweeteners. They can look at 6 shots and they don't see those 6 shots. They see opportunities to create visual tricks.
You fire all the guns at those movies, and the atmosphere is so competitive. You have all these really good trailers that are really amped, you know, in all departments. You know, they're electronic internegative, the colors are amped, everything is controlled and packaged to be, you know, as exciting as can possibly be. And you look at that and you go, wow, look what you did. You know, that is so good. And then you go to the theater and you see that there are 3, and it's lost in the 3 other that look exactly like it.
There are other downsides to the fire all the guns approach. The fast-paced editing and loudness offend some patrons. Also, the emphasis on action and visual stimulus can leave little room for story and character development.
Since we're all competing for the same dollars, no matter what the genre of the film, it makes the trailers start to look the same.
The quick cutting, you know, eye stimulus has taken a great deal of effect in the way trailers are made these days, and even to the point where some of us are saying, wait a minute, slow it down, let's not do that, let's let this scene play out, you know, let's let the actor's performance read through.
They're less unique. They don't have as much character because they're not supposed to. The idea is not to keep anybody out rather than get people in.
With a continued emphasis on high-impact visuals, it's no surprise that in the late 1990s, editors emerged as the trailer boutique's key employee. Those with reputations and very strong sample reels attracted clients and began to command impressive salaries.
Editors are the stars of this business. Of course, it's easy for me to say because I'm an editor. And the only reason that I'm sitting here today is because I was a good editor.
I celebrate this. I love the fact that directors ask for certain companies to work on their advertising campaign. I love that editors and producers and companies have, rightfully so, achieved fame, so to speak. They deserve it.
I know now, being an owner of a company, that when I get a good movie and I give it to an editor, it is out of my hands. The editor is the one who comes up with the first cut. The editor is the one who comes up with a piece of music, with the entire presentation. The producer or the owner of the company comes in and then changes it or readapts it. But the editor is like the writer who's working on a blank page. He's got all the elements, and he puts them together.
If editors are the stars of the trailer making process, then copywriters are the unsung architects of the project. Their words are used to sell a client on a concept, give shape to the story the editor tells visually, and deliver a memorable line to audiences.
I think the writing is almost scaffolding. I think of myself as building something that maybe no one will see, but it will help the editor in the structure that he makes. And perhaps a few lines I write will get actually recorded and used.
Now, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, the legend continues.
If adventure has a name, it must be Indiana Jones.
Shopping mall, where shopping costs you an arm and a leg.
As we've seen, a trailer is a tool that positions a film within a crowded, competitive marketplace. Since no movie can appeal to everyone, positioning a film properly requires identifying who is most likely to want to see it and who isn't.
I got the chance to interview Andy Keene, and he said something that made me understand what had really happened in the history of the trailer. He said, in the classical period, the trailer's purpose was to lure audiences into the cinema. Now, trailers have an additional purpose. First, they have to lure audiences into the cinema, but they also have to keep those for whom the film is not intended out. You know, they are actually meant to scare away the people who may not be able to enjoy the film. Why is that important? It's important because in film marketing, advertising has the first word, but the audience always has the last word, and the last word is the word of mouth.
There are times, however, when a marketing team chooses to avoid a certain element of a film, often because that element did not test well. In those cases, the clever feints and disguises that make up a good trailer may cross the line into deliberate deception, as in this trailer, which positions the picture as a romantic comedy while deliberately avoiding its tragic storyline.
Here comes the frog.
Deborah Winger is Emma Greenway Horton.
I got some good news. What's that? I'm unofficially pregnant. If you're not happy for me, I'm gonna get so mad if you're not happy.
Shirley MacLaine is Aurora Greenway, her mother.
Why should I? Why should I be happy about being a grandmother?
The old days, it was enough to kind of just whet your appetite and get you intrigued with what they had to offer. Now, it's almost become a cliche that the shakier they feel, that the studios feel about a particular movie, the more of the story they give to you.
The trailer for Castaway is a prime example of this tell-all approach, in which even the ending of the film is revealed immediately.
You were lost for 4 years. We had a funeral, coffin.
What was in it?
I can only imagine they do that out of insecurity. If they thought that the setup of the movie and the cast of the movie were enough, then they would let it go at that. It's when they're concerned, when they're worried that maybe there isn't enough of a hook, maybe this doesn't sound interesting enough, maybe this doesn't have something sexy or sizzly enough to grab that public attention. And now everybody's, vying for that public's attention and dollar.
The nature of the industry today demands constant collaboration. The financial stakes, the time pressures, and the many layers of decision makers elevate trailer production into one of the most difficult and dynamic of the commercial arts. As bandwidth, processor speed, and digital storage capacity multiplied in the 1990s, the downloading and manipulation of enormous image files made the internet a place for trailers to be seen and discussed.
The standard repository for all knowledge and wisdom in the universe is called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And it has this to say about movie trailers. Movie trailers are designed to give you an idea of the film in question in a very short space of time. Typically, they begin with the introduction of a main character, who will very shortly have something so utterly fantastic happen to him
Arthur! What the hell are those things?
that someone just had to make a movie about it.
Attention, people of Earth. Your planet has been scheduled for demolition.
Hang on, we're hitching a ride.
Often this section is preceded by the words, "in a world." But sometimes not. Trailers also normally employ a deep voice
that sounds like a 7-foot-tall man who has been smoking cigarettes since childhood.
The goal is to create a piece of advertising that's original and exciting.
Oh, far out!
Yet intelligent and provocative. In other words, lots of things blowing up. Occasionally interrupted by a girl in a bikini.
That does absolutely nothing for me.
Generally, trailers also feature heartless, evil villains, hideous creatures, dolphins, physical violence, and of course, the promise of true love.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And lastly, there is a final montage, often set to rock music.
Let's do it! Come on!
That is designed simply to blow away whatever synapses you have left in your brain. This culminates in a reveal of the main title, like so.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
The advent of home exhibition with sound, projection, and screen quality rivaling that of theaters has created an additional environment in which movies and their trailers are being consumed.
Hello, ladies. 60 seconds.
As financially and artistically rewarding as trailer making is today, it also provides a unique opportunity to acquire the skills needed for other careers in the movie industry. Creating trailers has been a launching pad for some of the top feature editors and directors working today.
Well, I think making trailers is a great rehearsal for becoming a movie director, simply because all editors know things that other people don't know. They know who can't act, they know who can't light, they know who does bad sound, they know all those things, and it's their job to cover it up so that everybody looks good. That's why editors are never invited anywhere. That's why they never go anyplace. You never see them around on the set. You know, get that guy away, he knows the truth.
When you're starting out, if you can start out anywhere, start out in post-production, because you will see, you'll see everything. And ultimately what you're doing in post-production is you're trying to take the best of the best and put it in there, and so you're getting, you know, and you can learn from other people's mistakes and from their successes, you know.
Being able to draw on that experience of seeing great filmmakers work and saying, okay, I can steal from that because it's similar to this I'm doing here. Can we do something like that? And that was the most beneficial part of how trailer making helped me, I think.
It requires you to take material, shape it in a way, and give it a structure, a form in which there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. You have to give the film pace. You have to exhibit showmanship and a flair for putting on a show. That's what this is all about, what we do.
Trailers are particularly good because it's all minimalism. I mean, it's basically you're really dealing with the very simplest form of trying to get your idea across. And as you go out into the directing world, the things that you learn about point-to-point editing and being able to get an idea across in a couple of cuts will ultimately influence the way you direct, if you're being economical about it.
More than 100 years after the first coming attractions, trailers continue their reign as the world's best-loved advertising. Begun as an experiment, developed as a craft, trailers have become an art form in themselves. even recognized for their creative influence on the movies they help to market. Trailers today are an essential component of the movie business, celebrated by award shows, included in film festivals, lauded for their artistry, and embraced by moviegoers worldwide.